Now let's look at an example of how your expenditure requirements and the assets that you have impact your particular scenario, and give you a gauge of what it might, what your retirement outcomes might be. Now I've just got an example here of Joe and Mary, who are 65 years of age. They're retired and they fully own their home. They have no mortgage on their home. Now their expenditure is below the current modest retirement of $27,000. Now Joe has a balance of $120,000 in his super, and Mary $50,000. Now a couple of years ago, the average superannuation balance for someone between 65 and 69 years of age was $120,000. That's why I've chosen that particular figure. Now we've assumed an 8% return on the superannuation assets. And so what's the outcome for Joe and Mary? Well, from age 65, their expenditure requirement is $27,000. That's represented by this green line here as it travels up the graph. It's going up because of inflation, and so it needs a cost of living goes up, so that $27,000 is indexed up over time. These red lines is what is actually being spent, and so the red lines being higher than the green line shows that they're actually generating more income than they're spending. They're spending less than they're earning, and because they're spending less than they're earning, and they're combining that with some growth on their investments, this blue line at the back, which represents their assets, continues to grow over time. So they're able to meet their objectives and grow their assets at the same time. But let's look at the sources of income, just to give you a gauge of where they come from. So at age 65, the age pension, their account-based pension provides $4,000 or $400,250 of their total income, and the age pension provides just under $26,000 of their total income. Now, because their assets are continuing to grow, because of the assets test, the amount of income support they get decreases relative to what their account-based pension provides them with. So because their assets are increasing, they're getting less and less age pension relative to their total income over time. In other scenarios where your assets are actually decreasing, the age pension will generally increase over time as a proportion of your total income. That just gives you a gauge of how your total income can be made up when you are accessing a part age pension. Now in the second scenario, Joe and Mary, the only thing that's changed here is that their income or their expenditure requirement is increased from $27,000 to more a closer figure to the comfortable retirement of $50,000. Now in this case, they're meeting their $50,000 income requirement, but because they're eating into their assets, these blue lines, they're having to eat into their assets to provide for that $50,000 income requirement, they're actually running out of assets. So from age 73, they're no longer able to provide for that $50,000 income requirement. And you can see this large gap between the green line, their expenditure requirement, and their actual expenditure. There's a significant difference here, and that's the shortfall. So it gives you an idea of the difference between providing for a modest retirement and a comfortable retirement. And just to round off this scenario, we've got another one where rather than having $120,000 in super, this time Joe has $450,000, so a total balance with Mary's $50,000 of $500,000 in super. Now in this scenario, with an expenditure of $50,000, Joe and Mary are able to provide for their income requirements, so the green line is met by the red line. So they're actually achieving their expenditure objectives, and they're also, with the growth in the investments, able to see their assets grow in value as well. So I hope those three scenarios give you an idea of what type of level of assets you would need to provide for your income in retirement.